So we need to talk about Skar King. I just got back from seeing Godzilla X Kong in theaters for the second time, which is practically unheard of for me. Usually, I figure it's better to put the money towards just buying it on DVD or Blu-ray than seeing it again in the theater. But we had some family who hadn't seen the Godzilla X Kong yet, and I actually enjoyed it, which is saying a lot for a franchise that I had given up on. I enjoyed it enough. I thought, hey, what the heck? Well, yeah, let's go see it again. And one of the things that really um, was reaffirmed for me in the second viewing is how awesome Skar King is. I've become like obsessed with my boy Skar King here. I know I said in my review I was going to wait and get the Hiya Toys version, but I decided I didn't want to wait until like Christmas next year. So found the Playmates version and the little plush version right there. And unfortunately, the theater I saw it at the second time didn't have the popcorn tins that look like a Monarch holding pen, or the collector cups with the little cup toppers or anything. So I couldn't get the Skar King versions of those. But this will tide me over for now, I think. And yeah, I've become obsessed. I love Skar King. He's awesome. Unfortunately, I seem to be the only person who thinks that. I mean, the criticism is mild, but I have heard a lot of in the reviews saying that they just wish Skar King was more than what he was, which in MonsterVerse fan terms means they wish that he was just stronger. Um, because something that I've noticed to my chagrin is that the MonsterVerse, to an extent, and MonsterVerse fans especially, just equate power and strength with just physical brute force. Godzilla is the physically strongest and most durable, and he has the most powerful atomic blast. Therefore, he's the best. He is the strongest. And so they're all wishing that, like, well, if you want to be a real foe for Godzilla and to a lesser extent Kong, then you need to be like physically the strongest. You need to body everybody. You need to be Ghidorah. And that's really unfortunate, especially on, say, on sort of two main counts. And this is an issue that I had with what they did with in Godzilla versus Kong. I mean, first of all, they downplay the savagery of primates. Primates are psychotic. If there was an actual monkey the size of King Kong, it would be the most terrifying animal that ever existed. You're on YouTube. Go watch videos, if you can stomach it, of attacks by monkeys, by macaques, and by apes, like gorilla attacks and especially chimpanzee attacks. Just absolutely brutal, absolutely psychotic. And I mean, they're certainly not weak. A gorilla, a 500-pound gorilla, can like bench press 2,000 pounds. Like, can bench press a giraffe. And you scale that up to Kong versus Godzilla, and he should be able to just toss like Godzilla around. He should have done the tail swing. Um, so don't undersell it, but it's like it's the savagery especially, which is a different type of strength, right? There's just physical brawn, but then there's the savagery applied to that. Like it would have been an amazing scene in GVK if Kong just like took an atomic blast to the chest, was really confused, and then just like jumped at Godzilla and started ripping off his face and eating it. Which is something that a primate would do. The other thing that I didn't care for is how it downplayed intelligence as well as a type of strength to be smarter than. And this was something that the American the American dub of the original King Kong versus Godzilla really made a point of.
Godzilla has a brain about this size. He is sheer brute force, while Kong is a thinking animal.
Yeah, like Kong is smarter than Godzilla. So why they were fighting fist to fist when you should have had more of these scenes of like Kong outsmarting Godzilla, who is just brute force and dumb animal intelligence. Um, But everyone's just like, oh, Godzilla's the best. Kong's just a big monkey, or whatever. It's like, no. Now, one of the things I liked about Godzilla X Kong is that it actually rectified a lot of that by what it did with Skar King, by not making him the strongest Titan who is able to take on Godzilla just in brute strength. Um, think about the most evil people in human history, and rarely are they the physically strongest person who just beats up other people. They are charismatic leaders. They are charismatic, they're ambitious, they're psychotic, and they're able to rally and exert control over other people that turns them into such a force for evil. Right? They're the leaders of nations and revolutions and so on. And that's how they enact their evil. And that's what Skar King was. Skar King wasn't necessarily this great villain because he's so strong. He can just beat up Godzilla. He is a villain because he is malevolent. He is cunning. He is ambitious. He wanted to take over the Hollow Earth and then take over the surface world. And he's wielding an army of apes, and he's doesn't just have control of Shimo, but he's controlling Shimo through suffering. Like, that's particularly dickish. Like, he is such a dick. Skar King is such a dick, and that tells you so much about him, that he's got control over the apes out of fear. He's got control over Shimo out of suffering, and he just applies it to being this ambitious, malevolent, cunning, just dick. Especially his laugh when he's trying to undermine Kong's self-esteem, or when he gets to the surface world, he just sees all the humans scattering in front of him. He just has that laugh. He's just such a dick, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about him. That he is just a dick, and that's what makes him a villain. Um, and then he's got a great look as well. He's just that tall, lanky sort of cross between a chimpanzee and an orangutan, which is a nice contrast with the more gorilla-like Kong. Um, yeah, so that tall, lanky, that striking red fur with the white paint on it. That laugh again, and the different choice of weapon as well. Um, because these movies and the fandom have heretofore emphasized the physical brawn, the brute strength. So Kong is more of just a brute strength fighter. He's like a boxer, right? And he has the axe, which is just a smash weapon. Whereas, even though we don't see Skar King bodying everyone, he is an accomplished fighter. He's a martial artist. He's doing his acrobatics all around, doing his flippy stuff, and he's just hard to punch. He's always moving around. And his weapon is a very different weapon from the axe, which is a smash weapon. It's this cool whip chain thing he's got going on. He can hold his own in a fight, except when he's getting attacked from all corners by like two or three different enemies. Um, can hold on, but again, that's not his primary strength. The only criticism I would sort of agree with for Skar King is that we did see him defeat Kong. He ran Kong off through the combination of his martial arts abilities and then unleashing Shimo on him. And they would appropriate the axe and stuff. So that sort of explains why Kong needed the upgrade. But for Godzilla, we're just sort of told he needs the upgrade um, to go Super Saiyan and defeat Skar King. We're never actually shown it. It would have been cool to actually see, well, even in a flashback, just to see the old war, right? But to see why Godzilla would need the upgrade to fight Skar King and the army and Shimo. because that's a package deal there. That the army is what makes Shimo strong. To see Godzilla fight them, barely survive, whatever, and that's why he needs the upgrade, because we don't have that contrast. So then, by the time we get to the final fight, and in Rio, and they're just kicking Skar King around pillar to post, that we would have something to contrast that with. Because without the contrast, that final fight just looks like a normal fight. We don't see why they needed the upgrades. I would agree with that much. But again, it's relatively minor to the fact that Skar King isn't the kind of enemy that is just brute strength that can just beat up Godzilla. Right? He's not Ghidorah. Um, so all those reasons combined, I think, are why I think Skar King is actually a really great villain. Granted, I may be a little bit biased insofar as I am a King Kong fan, and it's cool to have a new addition to the overall sort of rogues gallery of Kong's enemies. Because of course we have the T Rex, that's the classic, naturally. Um, the biplanes. We have the skull crawlers, whose design I don't really care for. We have Godzilla, who is his own character entirely. In 1962, he was still a villain character. This is his third movie. He's still a villain. But he's had a life of his own, and whatever. It's the whole other thing. They're not like arch nemesis in the same way. Gorosaurus was just a stand-in for T Rex, and we have Mechanicon and now Skar King, and those are the two best. Mechanicon and Skar King are the best enemies, and it's interesting that Kong's best enemies, greatest enemies so far, are just evil versions of himself, but not just evil versions of himself. So you have the robot doppelganger, which is a nice touch, and he was the first. Mechanicon was the first one, and then Skar King, but he's not just like King Kong with a twirling his mustache, right? The evil King Kong with the goatee from the Mirror Universe. He is still his own character. He's an ape, but he's a visually distinct. He's more based on orangutans and chimpanzees. Got the red fur. He's got the different look, the different weapon, as well as the different attitude, different fighting style. So he's not just Kong but evil. He's his own character that contrasts well with Kong in a bunch of different ways in how he looks, how he fights, and so on. Not just his attitude. So I enjoy that we have this new addition to go alongside Mechanicon as a really cool addition to that. And yeah, I think if for MonsterVerse fans, if you got out of thinking of um, Skar King and any villain, any enemy kaiju titan as just, oh, he has to be strong enough to beat up Godzilla, and think about what are some other forms of villainy. What else defines a villain, and what else is strength? What else is power? Um, cunning, again, cunning, intelligence, ambition, just general malevolence, and just being a dick. Like this guy's a dick, and being a dick is what makes him cool. Um, it might broaden your horizons a bit about what is even possible in the monster verse. So anyways, there we go. So that's the conversation I wanted to have with you about Skar King and why Skar King is actually really freaking cool.